Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of other tricks that we can do here. So we've gone through putting over photograph references straight onto the model. We've also gone over applying tileable textures as a brush. What I'm going to show you now is more along the lines of straight up polypaint. So we're actually going to turn the texture off. We're going to put our stroke to freehand, and we're going to select an alpha that's got a brush that's just a little more broken up. Maybe something like this. This is called Alpha 8 on my machine, so that's kind of what we're after. Okay, so I'm going to select that, and once again make sure RGB is turned on. If I press C, I can color drop a certain part of the texture that's already on there. And if I paint, I'm actually painting that texture straight onto the model. I'll just demonstrate it here where you can see it a little more clearly. That's essentially what I'm doing. And you can use that to fill in some gaps where you just simply can't get it to work with the photograph texture or your tileable textures. And you can switch between two colors here. The shortcut for that is V, so I can switch between a slightly darker color. And if it's coming out a little bit too intense, remember you can just turn that focal shift down to 0 and your RGB intensity. You can toggle around with that as well to change your results. So once again, never be afraid to experiment, guys. It's how you learn. At this point, you can still sculpt some normal detail into it. And in fact, you can sculpt and polypaint simultaneously if you turn Z add-on at the same time. So you'll probably notice that your rock has got all these little tight cracks and crevices in there that you'll probably want to utilize. So to get some information in there, I'm going to use the damn standard brush. Okay, so the shortcut for this is BDS, brush damn standard. All right. Now you'll notice that Z add is turned to Z sub. And this is because the default state of the damn standard is actually to sculpt in the model. It does this, just demonstrate it there. Now, if I combine that with RGB, I will paint a darker tone at the same time as sculpting into my model. Now, clearly that's way too intense, so we need to toggle around with that. So I'm going to turn that RGB intensity down to, I don't know, let's say around 30. And I'm going to have a darker color and a lighter color. I never like to use complete black, it's just not good practice. So I'm going to put a little off tone there. And for my light shade, once again, I never like to work in complete extremes, so just getting towards white, maybe with a little bit of orangey yellow in there, a little more natural. Okay, so my sculpt normally, I'm getting in some lovely tight crevice work there, getting in all of the bumps and cracks into the rock. If I hold down Alt, I can get these little highlights in around the bumps, just where I want it to catch a little more light, get some speckles. So as you can see, there's a lot of information in here, and you can really go to town with it and get some very realistic looking work. Okay, there is yet one more thing I want to show you. I appreciate I'm showing you a lot. You can also use those tileable textures that you created as a way of creating geometry information. Okay, you can actually use them to sculpt fine details. It's your rock, even at this point. So to do that, you want to turn RGB off because RGB is for color only. You're going to put Z add on. Okay. We want to put this back onto drag rect, but first I like to change my brush to the standard brush. This is because whatever work I'm doing in terms of alphas, I like to dedicate just to one brush, otherwise things get a little messy. So I'm on the standard brush and I've put this to drag rect. I'm now in the alpha brush. I'm going to actually import one of my tileable textures. Yeah, let's try that one out. Okay, so you'll see it's grayscaled one of my tileable textures that I created in Photoshop. Now, if I was to drag this out as is, it would have quite a horrible border on it. Okay, if I up the intensity, you might be able to see it a little more clearly. It would be like this. It's quite nasty. Clearly not the results we want. Okay, so I'm going to put that intensity back down to 25. Now, what you want to do for this is to go to Alpha, and you want to go to Modify, turn on Anti-Aliased, and you want to up the radial fade just a little bit, and you'll see there that it's just changed the outside of the texture to kind of fade out. So it's up to you how much you do it by. I've just done it by 10. That's usually enough for what we want. So now you notice when I drag this out, I'm actually getting some little bits of information, little bits of grain coming through. In certain areas of your rock, you may really want that. Just helps to add that little bit more data that you need. So what I'll do from here on out is I'll finish off this rock and I'll just time lapse the rest of it for you guys. Okay, so once you've got your textures to a stage that you feel like you're happy with, you'll be ready to export them. Now, we've gone over exporting a normal map, so I won't show you how to do that again. To export your diffuse map, all you need to do is to go down to texture. You want to go on create. Once again, make sure your UVs are set to the size you want them to. And click on New from Polypaint. And then you should see your texture generated there. So turn texture off, clone it, and then go up to the top where it says texture, flip it vertically, and export it as a PNG. Okay, so now that we're back in 3DSMAX, you want to make sure that your normal map is updated. Now we're going to add that diffuse map we just created. So diffuse color, make sure that's at 100. We're going to select bitmap, and you're going to find your bitmap PNG. And then just drag it over your model, and you should see your texture appear like so. Okay, so that's all there. Okay, so that is your rock pretty much fully created. You can of course go and create other maps for it. What I recommend you do now is start experimenting by changing the shape and rotation so that we can fully appreciate the modularity of what we just created. So first thing we should do is create a copy of it. I'm just doing this by holding down Shift and dragging. Call this your rock template or something of that nature. Basically, this is the rock in its normal instance. You're never going to touch that or modify it, that is it in its default state. Now we can freely create some instances of it we're not afraid to mess around with. We can rotate them, and we can of course remove and add some edges perhaps. We can also use the soft selection to morph the shape. So really exaggerate some of the size differences between the rocks. Don't be afraid to remove certain loops as well. So you double click on the edge, you just hit Control Backspace to remove it if that's what you want to do. This is the fun part. This is the reward for your hard work earlier on, really. That's the way I look at it. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, then please post them below, and subscribe for more content coming soon. Cheers.